The former ruling party, or the former majority party, if you like, Jubilee. So the political parties dispute tribunal ruled in favor of the Kanini Kega faction, said that the meeting they had was properly constituted and therefore they're the bona fide leaders of that party. I want us to listen to Kanini Kega, who spoke about the win for him and his faction.
Ni kwamba Mheshimiwa Kioni sio mwanachama wa chama cha Jubilee, Mheshimiwa Murathe sio mwanachama wa chama cha Jubilee, na Mheshimiwa Gichohi amewekwa kando kwa miaka miwili. Ya pili niseme kwamba sisi kama wanachama na viongozi wa Jubilee tutahakikisha kwamba tumewahusisha members wetu katika zile taratibu zote ambazo zinafanywa. Kinyume na hapo awali ambapo kulikuwa ni watu wachache tu, watu wachache sana walikuwa wanahusishwa katika mambo ya chama.
Okay, so again, I was about to use that nickname. Sam,
right.
What happened? Eventually that nickname will come out. So,
yeah,
time?
Not yet though.
Not yet though.
I have banned it for 3 years.
Okay, lips are sealed. So Sam, I mean, you know, what happened? In fact, there was claims that some people saw, this decision by the tribunal before it was...
Ahead of time.
Yes, ahead of time. But, you know, what does this all mean for the Jubilee Party now?
This party has gone through a lot since the last election was concluded. We're talking about some 11 months ago. And listening to Kanini Kega, apparently the Secretary General of the party for a few days, probably 2 or 3 days, and now because the High Court has, of course, suspended that decision, I mean, he was already taking the reins of power within that party, even organizing or calling for an NDC that essentially would have gone ahead to now confirm the list of the leadership within the Jubilee party. But things have moved so fast because, remember, after that tribunal decision, I think it was the following day we saw a Gazette notice. The Gazette notice came yesterday by the Register of Political Parties to the tune of giving notice of intention to amend the register of that party, in particular the list of leaders within that party. And I found it curious because the Gazette notice that I saw from the ORPP does not include what happens to the party leader, because Uhuru Kenyatta, party leader, but there was an advert in the papers by the Jubilee Party, ostensibly by one Kanini Kega team, that was also changing, that Uhuru Kenyatta was becoming the former party leader and Sabina Chege becoming now the new party leader. But the Gazette notice by Andy Rito did not have the name of Uhuru Kenyatta as being replaced by anybody. But then again, of course, now the team of Jeremiah Kioni has gone to court to protest that indeed the tribunal made that decision, yet it was a slim majority of 4 versus 3, and they're laying the grounds, that being one of them, that it's unheard of that you had a tribunal making a decision, a split decision. So you have 4 versus 3. But also they are saying that the speed at which this decision moved, such that it was accessible ahead of its time, is quite ridiculous. In the court papers that I've seen that have been filed in court, the lawyer, Jackson Awele, is saying that how come that this decision was known, and then when they raised that with the tribunal said that administrative action was going to be taken. And he's sort of saying that in the traditions of justice, you cannot have a judgment leaking ahead of its time. So really, at the moment, of course, Jeremiah Kioni remains as the Secretary General, Uhuru Kenyatta remains as the party leader, and all the other officials remain within that party. So we have to wait for a lot of some drama to come from the High Court.
I just want us to listen to Jeremiah Kioni complaining about, what you've just said was in their papers.
Those who are pushing a coup within Jubilee had already a judgment in their favor with them yesterday. You don't need to be told more of what is happening there. We also were aware of the judgment that was delivered yesterday. The result was delivered to us by Akina Kanini Kega through their tweets. over the weekend. So it is clear that within the system, they are the ones in charge of that process, and they are the ones pushing for the collapse of Jubilee as one of the parties that is targeted within Azimio fraternity, and it is a clear indication of their desire to kill multi-partyism in this country. We have done a letter to the tribunal, which will be delivered today, complaining about the availability of their judgments, and especially those by the majority, because the minority judgments are not available.
Yeah, and you know what you were saying about the position of the party leader, you know, just very quickly, which is, you know, former President Uhuru Kenyatta. I think for me, it's just interesting to see the direction that this takes, you know, with everything that's happening in Jubilee for the former president. We're in a unique setting. Our previous former presidents, you know, retired at a much more advanced age. You know, they went home and they sort of retired into, you know, away from the public limelight. But you have a different case. I mean, you know, we're a young democracy, and here is, you know, President Uhuru Kenyatta, who's nowhere near the age of his predecessors at the time of their retirement. What does he do now? What sort of role does he play, if any, in the politics of the country? What does he say? Which direction does he take? I think that'll be interesting. Also considering for, you know, subsequent presidents in this country, because we seem to be taking a trend. So what will happen with, you know, President William Ruto, should he win a second term in 2027, by the time he leaves in 2032, he'll also still be, you know, a fairly young man. God willing and God providing, he will be in good health and will still be somebody that, you know, is, you know, remains in the public domain, unlike President Mwai Kibaki and former President Moi. So, you know, what happens with him? Which way does he go? What's the direction? And of course, for whoever takes over in 2032, how old will they be? Will they be young, you know, and still energetic, and perhaps they might be willing to continue to participate in the public political discourse, or they might choose to, you know, just sort of retire into the sunset and do what they want to do. So for me, I think out of all this circus and the Jubilee Party, it'll be interesting to see the direction that takes.
Yvonne, as we finish, I think Jubilee is actually an unfinished business, in my opinion, between President William Ruto and former President Uhuru Kenyatta, because remember, they were both very involved in its formation. Their interests are in ensuring that they're able to influence the party. Because for former President Uhuru Kenyatta, as you've rightly put it, he needs it as a tool of relevance in the current arrangement. And I think for current President William Ruto, maybe it's a way to get back at his boss, considering how the relationship is. And remember, he has said that he spent a lot of energy building Jubilee as a party. I also think that the situation in Jubilee is actually a test about the credibility of the office of the registrar of political parties on whether it can be independent, because there are those who see the decisions by that office as being politically influenced, but there are those who see it as being independent. So this is also a test. And you rightly put it, like, to see, so what next? What would be the direction that Jubilee and the wrangles within it takes, considering the fact that it's clearly important to the current President, William Ruto, and former President Uhuru Kenyatta, Yvonne. Yeah,
that's it. So wait and see.